guys, it's time for the fear card, or excuse me, the devil card, which really is kind of the fear card. So I used to get really upset about this card, and I feel like a lot of people do. But I want you to not think of this card as the devil card anymore, and I want you to think of it as the fear card, right? So it's representing some sort of fear. It's not actually representing the devil, okay? So this one is actually really dark. But again, so your job as a reader, whether you're reading for someone else or whether you are reading for yourself, is neutrality, right? If we get all upset and in our emotions and freaked out, we've lost our impartiality and we are no longer being of service, and we're no longer being a clear vessel for divine intelligence to flow through us, for our intuition to flow through us, for our divine downloads to flow through us, right? So your job is always to remain neutral. Okay, so when this card comes up, just allow yourself to be in your neutrality, and just think of this as, this is representing some sort of fear, right? This is giving me information and knowledge about the pattern or the situation that I'm reading, and it's just telling me that there's some sort of fear, okay? So after you've grounded yourself and you feel like, okay, it's just the fear card, not a big deal, right? Let's move into more what this card can mean. Alright guys, I just suddenly realized that I don't actually have a devil card that has the traditional archetype pictures. So I looked this one up for you because I wanted to go ahead and show it. So generally this card in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck has the devil and then the two people being held by chains, so they're both chained to the devil. So let's be neutral and let's explore this card. So moving into this card feels to me like fear, okay? It feels like fear, it feels like uncertainty, it feels like you're somehow bound or chained. But what you're really bound and chained by is fear, okay? So you're not bound and chained by the devil. You are bound and chained by what the devil represents, which is fear, okay? So like I said earlier, every time you see the devil card, you're going to think, oh look, it's the fear card, okay? And there is nothing to fear about the fear card, by the way. It is just giving you information. So this is telling you that you may be too influenced by your fears, and you may be thinking that your fears are real, right? So a lot of times when we're in some sort of situation and we don't know how to move forward, there's fear and uncertainty running rampant. We have belief structures that are in the way, we have emotional things that have happened to us that now make us afraid. And what this card is telling you is that it's not something that you need to be afraid of, like you can escape, like there is a way out. So what I love about this card is the window. So as you notice, the character on the card is reaching towards the window. So one thing that I want to bring up about this card is it is a temporary situation, right? Being in something that may make you feel fear or uncertainty or unable, like how to proceed forward is a temporary situation, right? There's always the window, and you can always choose the window, you can always choose the light, and you can always move out of it, right? Being bound by fear is not this thing that's gonna like happen forever, right? Like you get to choose to move out of the fear. You do not have to stay in the fear, and you do not have to stay in that situation. So if you don't have fear about the fear card, right, and you're being neutral and you're just kind of noticing what you notice, and you're just kind of looking at the card and then intuitively feeling into the situation, allowing yourself to be a clear vessel, you may come up with some very insightful and practical things for the person that you're reading for, or for yourself if you're reading for you. So questions that I might ask myself when this card comes up is, what is holding you back? Or what do you think is holding you back, right? What are you afraid of, okay? One of my friends, this is her favorite question. She's a life coach, and it's like, well, what are you most afraid of? And that is such a good question, because when you ask that question, you are disarming the fear, right? You are lessening its power and hold over you. When you look at it, you are diminishing it, right? A lot of times we don't want to look at our fears because we feel like the fears are more powerful than we are. But when we stop and we actually freaking look at them, we realize that they're not that powerful, right? They're like just this thing that we were thinking was so powerful, but it's actually not, okay? So that is another thing I want to bring up about this card. A lot of times, if this card comes up, you know, the person may be emotionally feeling like their fears are more powerful than them, right? These situations are trapping them, and these situations are more powerful than they are, so therefore they don't know how to escape, okay? That is only a perception, okay? And I know that sometimes when you're in the fear, it's hard to see that, but when you move to the other side of the fear, you can look back and you can be like, oh, okay, well, yeah, I see. Because I didn't have that information, or because I wasn't acknowledging something, or I wasn't acknowledging some truth, therefore it felt like a fear situation. What I do know from my own experience is when you look at the truth, when you access truth, the fear disappears, okay? And the truth in this card is going to be represented by the window and the light. So by looking at what you are not owning, what you are most afraid of, what your false premises are. So that's another good question. What are the false premises that you're operating on, right? What are the untruths that you keep telling yourself? What is the negative story? What is the negative belief structure, okay? Let's go into that about the negative story, because a lot of times we'll be in some situation in our life and we'll keep telling ourselves the same negative, disempowering story over and over and over again. And we don't have to keep doing that, right? By continuously saying that story and repeating that story and telling everybody our story of woe, right? We're just like energetically reinforcing it. We're emotionally reinforcing it, right? And you don't have to do that. You don't have to keep reinforcing freaking disempowering patterns, right? You get to say no to the fear and be like, no, I don't think so. And you get to change that around. So if this does come up, it's really an introspection card, right? It's like, where am I continuing to engage in negative behaviors, unhealthy behaviors, disempowering behaviors, disempowering belief structures? Am I tearing myself down, right? Am I tearing other people down? It's basically looking at the stuff that you don't want to look at, and most people don't want to look at. But by not looking at it, you're allowing it to have hold over you. And really, there's no reason for that. Like, you don't have to do that. When you face your fear and you look at it, it disappears, because it's just, fear can only run rampant if you are not actually accessing what is true. When you access the truth, it allows the false thing to fall away and to drop away. So, you know, this card is going to ask you to look at, you know, are you allowing your fears to paralyze you? Are you allowing them to stop you? Where are you allowing that to happen in your life? What is it that you're not seeing or looking at or acknowledging? Are you not acknowledging your skills? Are you not acknowledging your emotional resilience? Are you not acknowledging the choices that you actually have? Are you not acknowledging, you know, the truths that are actually right in front of you, right? Because if you looked at them, you'd suddenly realize, well, the fear is kind of like not that big of a deal and you can easily overcome it, right? So another thing that this card can mean is like, are you coming from fear? Are you approaching a situation with fear? Or are you, how do I put this? Basically, it's kind of a card of not owning your power. I think that's the best way I can put it. It is a card of not being in your power and being in truth. Because when you acknowledge the truth and see truth, what is true for you on a core level, and acknowledge your values and acknowledge what you do know, like you really, really, really know deep inside of you, then fear can't have a hold of you, right? So this really is a card about acknowledging what you don't want to see, and remembering that you are more powerful than the problem or situation, and choosing to acknowledge your power and step into that instead of continuously allowing the fear to override your life, right? Like, you get to be in an empowered place and take empowered actions and move forward, and you don't actually have to let these like situations and things override you, right? You can be like, no, I don't think so, and you can choose truth, and you can choose integrity, and you can choose healthiness, and you can choose empowered choices, behaviors, thoughts, and beliefs that actually allow you to be free of whatever the situation or feeling state was that made you feel trapped in the first place. So let's move into let's move into this card. This is from the Druid Craft Tarot. It's, let's see, Chronos? I don't think I'm saying that correctly. But, so the Druid Craft Tarot is very much based on Celtic feelings and thoughts and perceptions. And in this card, we have the two lovers lying in the grass, and then we have the horned figure behind in the trees. So Cernunnos is actually a Hellenistic period type god. Hellenistic meaning like first century, before that, before the Roman Empire. And this is a horned god that is actually seen all over Gaul. Okay, so this is the horned god. And I'm sure you've seen him before, alright? So he's depicted on, I think, a brass cauldron, if my memory serves me correct. And this may be the picture of that, I can't quite remember. But he is a horned god, and he has a torque around his neck, and he's usually represented with a torque, and he's also holding one. So a torque would be this, right? It's kind of hard to get off. So this is a torque, right? And I actually have this made for myself. So anyway, so he's always wearing one of these. And the horned god is actually the god of fertility, right? In Celtic, I don't want to say mythology, because mythology tends to denote something that's not actually real, kind of like it's a fantasy, or at least that's the modern connotation of that word. But Celtic story, okay, let's use the word story, that feels good to me, of Celtic story. And the god of fertility, I feel like, now not that I was actually around at this time period, but what intuitively came to me when I started to read this card was, then Christianity came along, and Christianity, of course, wanted to make everything that was kind of pagan and basically not Christian evil, bad, and wrong. So it projected all of like the negative things onto the horned god, right, the god of fertility, in order to make paganism bad, wrong, or evil, right, because that is the Christian paradigm of things, generally, I've noticed. And so, like, what that feels to me is, you know, Christianity, the new society coming along and be like, okay, we're going to make all these Celtic things bad, right? You know, we're going to make all of these horned gods and all the gods and deities that they have wrong, so that we can basically control people, etc. That's kind of how I feel about that. But anyway, all those thoughts aside, you know, all the negative bad things got projected onto the horned god, and he is not that, he's actually the god of fertility. So if you want to look at the devil card from this perspective, if you have this deck, like I don't get those feelings and frequencies when I'm looking at this card, which is from this deck, right? I'm only getting these perceptions when I tune into the energies of this card. So again, trust the deck that you choose to read with, and then trust the intuitive impulses that come through. Because I do read this card differently than I read this card, okay? But if I were to receive this card in a reading, because my interpretation of this card is like, oh, well, Christianity projected all their negative thoughts and belief structures on the horned god to make them bad or evil, to make people stop being pagan and be more Christian, what that would prompt me to think in a reading is, what are you projecting all of your negative belief structures on? What are you making bad in your life, right? Like, what are you judging? What are you kind of quote-unquote demonizing in your life, right? Like, what are you rejecting about yourself? What are you rejecting in others? What are you rejecting in your life? Are you rejecting your power? Are you rejecting your emotions? Are you rejecting your skills and your talents? Like, what is it that you are like kind of discarding and pretending that's over there, and not acknowledging, not seeing, and not integrating, right? Because if you're trying to project judgment on someone else about something, that's something you're not actually acknowledging in yourself, and integrating within yourself and loving within yourself. So another question for this card, what are you not loving within yourself? What are you seeing as unlovable? And love that thing, embrace that thing, bring that thing in. Choose to like have love and compassion and grace and inclusiveness, right? It's almost like, you know, love the thing that you have been pushing out or resisting or refusing to love. So what have you been refusing to love? Okay, so that is that's my interpretation of this card. Okay, so with the devil reversed, what comes up for me is, okay, when the card was right side up, it was you felt very powerless and like things outside of you were more powerful than you. The energy reversed to that is you know that you are more powerful than your fears. You know that you are more powerful than whatever obstacles in front of you, right? Like, you probably have just overcome some sort of obstacle, and so you're now like on the other side of it, just starting to like move into newness, right? So you're no longer like caught up and taken down by whatever the situation was because you've just surpassed it, or you have some sort of new situation coming, some sort of new obstacle, but you're not going to be fooled by it, right? You're not going to be taken down by it because you've already learned how to overcome such things, right? Like, you're already past that. You know what I mean? Like, you've already been there, done that, gotten the t-shirt, and your fear is not going to clobber you again, right? Like, you already know better. You already have acknowledged the truth. You've already acknowledged your own inner power. So you're not going to get snowed by that again. Like, it's not going to happen, right? It's almost like you see it a mile away. You're not going to get caught up in that again. You're just going to like easily step over it and be on your merry way. Whereas maybe a long time ago, the previous you would have gotten all embroiled and fell in the pothole. This time you're like, oh, I see the pothole, and you're just going to like gingerly step over it and be on your way, okay? The other thing that I feel about this card is like a level-headedness and neutrality about a difficult situation. So you're not all emotionally embroiled. Like, this would be you're emotionally embroiled and you feel powerless and helpless and you're all like, ah, right? This is more, well, I see it, I acknowledge it, I realize it's there. I'm not going to get all emotionally engaged and taken down, and I'm just going to be like, okay. So it's like a feeling of more emotional neutrality towards the obstacle, which means that it's going to obviously be easier for you to move through it, right? Now, if I move into the reverse of the Chronos, of the Chronos card, it feels to me like you've conquered your inner fears, you've conquered your judgments, you've moved to the other side of it, you've chosen to embrace love, you've chosen to embrace inclusiveness, like you have the wisdom of being on the other side. You have the insight that comes from a transformation, that comes from seeing your fears, that comes from facing your adversities, right? You're now on the other side and you are at peace and you have wisdom as a result of the difficult situation that you have just traversed. All right? So I hope that that was super helpful for you guys, and I hope that you always see the Devil card differently, right? There's no reason to be in fear and freaked out. It's just representing some sort of fear, and you can easily change the fear. You can usually choose a new reality. You can easily change your perspective, and you can see the truth and then easily break the bonds from the fear and move forward. Alright guys, I just wanted to go ahead and add something to this video. I wanted to talk about what the Devil card may look like in some other decks. So the first card that I want to go into is the Fairy Tarot, and Radleigh Valentine has made this the Ego card, which is a really like good representation, because a lot of times your ego, you know, is steeped in fear and focused on the fear and not focused on the light. Okay, so the bottom of this card says the illusion of being trapped, placing too much importance on material items, getting caught up in fear and worry, right? And these are things your ego does. It focuses on all the things you're afraid of. So the two fairies are burning some things in the fire and they're letting them go, right? So this card, I feel like, is a really good representation of the Death card. It's like, okay, we're going to let go of the things not serving us. We're going to let go of our fears. We're going to stop letting our ego run the show, and we're going to move on, right? The next card that I want to talk about is the Archangel Power Tarot cards. So this one he has called Decision, which is a great way to say it. Make a decision to stop focusing on your fears and to like get out of your cage. So in this card, the doves are being freed by the angel and they're moving out of their cage, right? So you are divinely free, right? You do not need to stay in the cage of fear. You do not need to stay focused on your problems and focused on the bars and focused on the reasons why you can't move forward. No, choose to open the door and fly out of the cage, okay? And the bottom of this card says, release yourself from that which holds you back and need to detox unnecessary worry based on lack of self-confidence. And the last card, which is the Angel Tarot cards, again, is ego. And in this card, there's an angel standing behind the man, and the man is wearing a mask. So I feel like this card is a good representation of what I talked about earlier when I was holding the Devil card about, you know, not acknowledging and seeing your fears and not actually like realizing that you are operating under illusions and you're operating under false premises and things that are just not true. So this card says a false sense of entrapment, being overly focused on material things, negative or fear-based thoughts, right? The Devil is really about negative fear-based thoughts and letting them go and choosing the light and making a decision, right, to be empowered and to see new perspectives and to focus on the light and focus on actually what's true, because the illumination of truth will kind of eradicate the darkness and you'll realize your fears really weren't that big of a deal in the first place, and you'll be able to move forward and move with beyond them.